Hello everyone, tonight we're going to talk about an indie Metroidvania titled Hollow Knight. The lore of this game is quite complicated and vague, and yet there's so much depth as well. So let's go ahead and dive into the kingdom of Hollow Nest. The setting of Hollow Knight is about humanoid bugs, and it features tons of underground tunnels and caves with lots of varied colors and environments to explore. Unfortunately, before we can get truly started, there will be quite a lengthy discussion of the setting and the lore of Hollow Knight tonight. To fully understand the connection between the character and the message, I'll need to spoil a decent amount of the game, but since we're doing a couple devos on this game, I figured it'd be easier to get most of the lore out of the way now. In Hollow Knight, you play an unnamed warrior we'll refer to as the Knight, and you begin your journey at the outskirts of a rundown village called Dirtmouth, and you meet a friendly bug named Elderbug. He informs you that Dirtmouth is all that's left of the once renowned kingdom of Hollow Nest. The ruins of this once great civilization lie beneath the surface, and many adventurers pass through Dirtmouth in hopes of discovering treasure and honor by exploring the ruins below. However, prolonged exposure below ground seems to cause bugs to lose their sanity. As they spend more time below, they lose their intelligence and survive only on their instincts. At first, you don't know why you're called down below the surface, but you venture forth into the tunnels of Hollow Nest anyway. Through your journey, you eventually meet a being named Hornet. At first she disregards you and goes on her way, but as you chase her down, you're finally able to corner her, and you see her standing over the corpse of yet another creature that looks very similar to you. And she responds with few words. "Come no closer, ghost. I've seen you, creeping through the undergrowth, stalking me. This old kingdom, a terrible thing awakens. I can smell it in the air. I know what you are. I know what you tried to do. I can't allow it." Once she finishes, the two of you have a fight. After holding her off, you continue your journey, and you won't encounter her again until much later in the game once you've reached the former capital of the kingdom, called the City of Tears. Here she hints that you will learn of the deeper secrets of Hollow Nest, and she beckons you to pursue her further. After tracking her down one more time at the very edge of the kingdom, you face her in combat once more. Once you beat her again, she comments that you may have the strength to complete your quest, but you need the will to see it through. She then shows you where to obtain the king's brand, and this is basically a marking that signifies you as the king of the land. The king's brand allows you access to the deepest and most heavily guarded area of Hollow Nest, the Abyss. It's here that you learn of your past and where you were born. You see, the Knight is an artificially created being, an organic robot, more or less, created by the old ruler of Hollow Nest called the Pale King. You were created for one purpose, and that's to seal away an ancient being or possibly an ancient god called the Radiance away. Before the creation of Hollow Nest, bugs in the area used to live in a hive mind. They were unthinking creatures that all served the Radiance with endless devotion. But then the Pale King appeared and granted all the bugs intelligence. He initially drove the Radiance away by removing all records of her existence and outlawing the mention of her. Over time, the people forgot about the Radiance, with the exception of a few who still remembered her. Then they began to have dreams about her, and she began to speak and influence bugs once more through their dreams. Resisting her ended up spawning an infection, and it's the same infection that is affecting the bugs during the current events of the game. However, the Pale King had a backup plan. If he couldn't make his subjects forget about her and thus rendering her defeated, then he would lock her away. You see, the Radiance creates order by manipulating the free will of bugs. No matter how strong your will is, she will eventually break you. So the only solution the king saw was to create a being that had no will. Perhaps you can see where this is going. The player character, the Knight, was a being created without the ability to think or to feel. You're one of the thousands upon thousands, if not millions of his failed creations called vessels. If a vessel showed any signs of being able to feel emotions or having independent thought, then they were cast aside and left to rot in the abyss. And as it turns out, that you too were deemed a failed vessel. That's enough lore for now. I'll save more of that for the future devos. I know it was a bit long, but there's a lot of lore to unpack. The big thing I wanted to focus on tonight is the importance of vessels in the Bible. Vessels are used throughout both the Old and New Testament. What is the purpose of a vessel? It's to hold stuff. There are two particular stories I want to talk about. The first one is 2 Kings chapter 4, verses 1 through 7. The wife of the man from the company of the prophets cried out to Elijah, "Your servant, my husband, is dead, and you know that he revered the Lord. But now his creditor is coming to take my 2 boys as his slaves." Elijah replied to her, "How can I help you? Tell me, what do you have in your house?" "Your servant has nothing there at all," she said, "except a small jar of olive oil." Elijah said, "Go around and ask all your neighbors for empty jars. Don't ask for just a few. Then go inside and shut the door behind you and your sons. Pour oil into all the jars, and as each is filled, put it to one side." She left him and shut the door behind her and her sons. They brought the jars to her, and she kept pouring. When all the jars were full, she said to her son, "Bring me another one." But he replied, "There is not a jar left." Then the oil stopped flowing. She went and told the man of God, and he said, "Go, sell the oil and pay your debts. You and your sons can live on what is left." So in this story, we see that vessels were used to hold the blessings of God. This woman had faith and God provided. What I really love is how God used something so incredibly simple, a jug of olive oil and containers. Something else I get out of this verse is how the extra containers weren't even the widow's. They belonged to her neighbors. I think this shows how God will often bless us through our friends and family and even strangers. In a way, we are God's vessels. I'll go into more depth on that idea next time. For now, let me talk about one more verse. Jesus talks about vessels in the parable of the 10 virgins, Matthew chapter 25, verses 1 through 13. "At that time the kingdom of heaven will be like 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish, and 5 were wise. The foolish ones took their lamps, but did not take any oil with them. The wise ones, however, took oil in jars along with their lamps. The bridegroom was a long time in coming, and they all became drowsy and fell asleep. At midnight the cry rang out, 'Here's the bridegroom, come out to meet him.' Then all the virgins woke up and trimmed their lamps. The foolish ones said to the wise, 'Give us some of your oil, our lamps are going out.' 'No,' they replied, 'there may not be enough for both us and you. Instead, go to those who sell oil and buy some for yourselves.' But while they were on their way to buy the oil, the bridegroom arrived. The virgins who were ready went with him into the wedding banquet, and the short door was shut. Later the others also came. 'Lord, Lord,' they said, 'open the door for us.' But he replied, 'Truly I tell you, I don't know you. Therefore keep watch, because you do not know the day or the hour.'" I know this parable is truly about the end times and how Jesus is coming back and that we need to be ready for him. But we also get to see that having a full vessel is important. We must be prepared at all times, and we stay prepared by making sure we have enough oil in our lamps. Vessels are also mentioned in the following 2 verses, but you can look these up on your own time. Romans chapter 9, verse 22, and Isaiah chapter 64, verse 8. Since Hollow Knight is a tough game, for tonight's World Quest, let's do something that you have to do in the game proper. When you die in Hollow Knight, a ghost or memory of yourself remains behind. You then have to make the trip back to where you died in order to reclaim that lost part of you. During your journey back, you have time to reflect on the mistakes you made that led to your death. Let's do this in our lives too. Think about something that you failed at and pray about what you can do to improve that scenario in the future. Maybe God urged you to share him with someone at the store, but it seemed awkward at the time, so you shrugged it off. Failure doesn't have to be this terrible thing that haunts us. It can be used as an opportunity to grow.